Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse, and I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, as you know. And today we are going to dive in on a really, really exciting program to wrap up our epic month of February. So February was the biggest month we've ever done as an organization, or the second, one of the two anyway. I think by the end, in addition to our 35 plus programs we've done throughout the month generally, we also had our 50 program in 3-day Women Blaze Trails Festival on the 12th through the 14th. So 80 programs we have done with amazing scientists and explorers around the globe. I think we broadcast from 27 countries, which is madness. Whether you wanted to go to space or to the deep ocean, the Serengeti Plains, the Amazon Basin, we have had a program for you. As many of our teachers may know, all of those live on YouTube. So whatever you're interested in, check out our YouTube channel and you will find some really inspiring and exciting presentations. So, of course, all month long, we've been hearing from so many scientists. But today we're going to do something a little bit different. I know our teachers today that are live got a little bit of a special message from Joe to begin with, and we're going to introduce a little bit more of that with our speaker in a minute. But today we are going to learn how to become junior scientists. We're going to learn how to actually take action and get out in the field, explore, observe, create hypotheses, do all the amazing things that scientists get to do from a young age, and maybe inspire some of your kids today to enter into some really exciting careers down the road. So to do that with us, our guide is Monica Granados. I am so excited to welcome her in today to wrap up our month of February. Monica, thank you so much for joining us today, and take us away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Monica Granados. I'm Dr. Granados. I have a PhD in ecology, so I did science, but now I work at Environment and Climate Change Canada working on something called Open Science. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to tell you a story. So the story is about going on a science adventure. It's a story about Celia. Celia is about the same age as you, and she loves science. The story is about a discovery that she makes and how she learns to share her discovery like scientists share their discoveries. Your teacher has asked you to have a piece of paper with you that is going to become your junior scientist notebook. So I've got a piece of paper here as well. And over the course of the story, I will be asking some questions to you, the junior scientist, just like scientists do when they're doing science. In your junior scientist notebook, write down a 1 or 2 word answer to the questions during the talk. Or if you feel free, you can feel free to just do a drawing if that's easier for you. I'll make sure to give you enough time to work on your notebook during the presentation. Okay, so if you're all ready, I'm going to get the story ready.
While you're pulling that up too, I just want to note for our kids at home, if you guys are at home tuning in on YouTube, get your notebook ready as well. Go find a piece of paper. You have a few minutes to do that. We'd love to have you guys taking part and sharing answers in the chat bar as well. So we are almost set, and it's beautiful. It's up. We can dive in.
Okay, let's get started with becoming a junior scientist. It's a story written by me, Dr. Monica Granados, and Mathieu Morin, with illustrations by the very talented Dominique Lin. That's a picture of her. This is Celia. It's a day before her birthday. She loves to go fishing with her mom at a stream by her house. The stream's a beautiful blue and the clouds in the sky look like marshmallows. Marshmallows. She's sitting on a log when she feels a tug on her fishing line. She's caught a fish that she's never seen before. Okay, here's our first junior scientist notebook time. And the question that we're asking today for the first round of the junior scientist notebook is, what do you do when you find something cool? So pull up your piece of paper and write down in 1 or 2 words or draw, what do you do when you find something cool? I'll give you about a minute to work on it.
All right, and again, folks, I just want to note for anyone tuning in on YouTube, let me know where you're joining from. We'd love to hear your answers there, and I'll pass them along to Dr. Granados. So please do share and keep us on our toes.
Okay, I hope you had a chance to write down the answer to what do you do when you find something cool. We're going to get back to the story. Celia takes the fish that she finds and puts it in a bowl with nice, clean water to study. Celia documents the fish in many different ways. She takes pictures of the fish and takes notes on its body shape because that tells her about how fast the fish can move. She also measures the length of the fish because it tells her how old it could be. Also, its placement of its mouth, because that can tell you something about what it likes to eat. She takes all of her notes and decorates her bedroom wall with her findings. At the end of the day, Celia goes back to the stream and returns the fish back to the water. It's the next day. It's Celia's birthday. Happy birthday, Celia. All her friends from school come to her birthday party. Celia tells them about her discovery. She tells them what color the fish is, how long it is, and what its body shape is. All her friends love the fish, and they want to find the fish themselves. So they start looking for the fish under rocks, in the drawers, far, far away. So it's time for another junior scientist notebook. Where would you look for a fish? So take your junior scientist notebook and in 1 or 2 words or draw, where would you go and looking for a fish? Again, I'll give you another minute to write down your answers.
I just want to say while you're doing that, we've been getting some great answers in the chat. So thanks so much to people from tuning in. We've got groups in Quebec, Ontario, someone all the way in England, originally from Halifax. So wide array of kids today joining us, which is really, really exciting. And I see our kids hard at work and our teachers hard at work in the backdrop as well. Way to go, guys.
So just a little time left. Write down your answer to where would you look for a fish? Wrap up your answers, and we're going to head back to the story. Celia goes to each of them and tries to explain where to find this new fish. She realizes that people want to know more about the fish and where to find it. She realizes she needs to share her knowledge, but going and telling each and every person is really hard. Celia talks to her mom and tells her about her problem. Mom, Celia says, it's really hard to tell everyone about my discovery, and no one knows where to look for the fish. Her mom thinks about Celia's problem and suggests that she go and meet with a fish expert who is a scientist. This is Dr. Ceja. Dr. Ceja is an ichthyologist, or someone who studies fish. She's wearing a blue dress and has a pin of a fish above her pocket. She really loves fish. Celia meets with Dr. Ceja in her laboratory. The laboratory is really cool. It has pictures of fish everywhere and fish in tanks. Celia sits down with Dr. Ceja and shows Dr. Ceja her notes containing pictures, notes, and drawings. Celia asks, how do scientists share their discoveries? Dr. Ceja explains that scientists write about their discoveries in reports called scientific papers. Then they send their papers to scientific journals that are issued regularly, like newspapers, magazines, or your favorite show. The information in these papers is useful to a lot of people, like lawmakers and doctors and other scientists. That information can also make its way to the textbooks that you use in class. Celia asks, can everybody read these scientific papers? Dr. Ceja answers that some scientific journals are free to read, but others you need to pay money for. Celia thinks that everybody should be able to read about her fish for free. Dr. Ceja explains that scientists are trying to make their science more accessible so that everyone can read and learn from their work for free. Lots of people are working to help make this easier for scientists too. This is called open science. Scientists also give talks to make it easier to share their discoveries with everyone using words that everyone can understand. Okay, folks, it's time for another junior scientist notebook break. This is the last one we'll have, and the last question is, what is one way that you can make something easier to find or understand? So again, take your notebook and in 1 or 2 words or draw your answer to the question, what's one way you can make something easier to find or understand? I'll give you another minute.
Sorry to interrupt. A very quick housekeeping note for our live stream teachers. If you have shared the StreamYard link with your classes, if you could make sure that they don't keep coming in on StreamYard, that would be lovely. They can watch it on YouTube or screen share with you guys on Meet or Zoom. Thank you guys so much. The answers have been amazing so far, Dr. Granados, by the way. Loving this.
I can't wait to take them up. Okay, just a little bit of time left to write in your junior scientist notebook. To the question, what's one way you can make something easier to find or understand? Okay, why don't we get back to the story? Celia is inspired by Dr. Ceja and getting to talk to her. She wants to give a talk like scientists do. So she talks to her teacher, and Celia gives a talk to her class about the fish she found and where it lives. Celia gets a big round of applause from her class. They really like this fish. Celia's teacher helps her upload the presentation that she gave to the class. They upload it on YouTube so that others can learn about her discovery. It gets lots of views and likes. Back in her laboratory, Dr. Ceja is studying the fish that Celia has found. She looks through books and scientific papers and can't find anything like it anywhere in the world. She thinks, maybe this is a new fish that's never been described before. It's a new species. Dr. Ceja talks to other scientists and determines that it actually is a new species of fish. Celia has made an incredible discovery. Dr. Ceja writes a scientific paper about Celia's discovery of a new fish. Because both Dr. Ceja and Celia worked on the discovery together, both of their names appear on the scientific paper. They make it open access so that it's free to read. Everyone loves reading about the new fish. It's so popular that it becomes the new mascot of Celia's school. All the kids are excited to get their new school uniforms and sports uniforms with the new mascot. Everyone's really happy that Celia discovered this new fish and can't wait to make discoveries of their own. The end. So thank you for listening to the story about Celia. And now we can take up the questions or the answers to the questions you provided in your junior scientist notebook.
Fantastic. What fun was that? That was our first ever reading in the history of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. How cool. So yeah, guys, we're going to dive in with questions. We've got our bevy of live groups. We've got groups on YouTube as well. That was amazing. I had wondered how she'd managed to get so many YouTube views. We would die to get that many YouTube views. The new species thing does, I think, give it a good rationale. Monica, if you want to come out of screen share too, if it's a little easier for you to see us, take your time and do that. There's no hurry.
Sounds good.
And what I'm going to do is start us off with Miss Nilvo's class in Los Lunas, New Mexico. So, Monica, how do you want to do it? Do you want to do it where we do one question at a time and see what kids had an answer to, or each class does all three, or what do you
Why don't we do one at a time?
One at a time. I think that works best. So, Miss Nilvo, for our first question, which Dr. Granados, if you want to remind us, what was that first question for our class?
So the first question was, what do you do when you find something cool?
Okay, Miss Nilvo's group, what did your guys come up with?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Some of the things that my students had sent over, because we are still remote, is that they said to investigate it. Yep. They asked questions about it. They try to go find more information about it. And then they also said they try to see how it works.
I like it.
I love those answers. And I love that, that their instinct is to go and then try to find more information. And I think that is sort of the idea of the story, is that if you find something, to share that discovery so that other, kids and adults and other scientists can then build on that knowledge and can find that information in books or magazines or different sources of information that are easy to access.
Fantastic. Thanks, Miss Nilvo. We got two Ottawa classes back to back. I'm going to go to Miss Boyer's class first. If you guys want to come in, what did your kids come up with?
They said that they would take pictures.
Yep.
They would tell an adult or their parents about it. My class is very creative, so they said they would use it in some way. And a lot of them said that they would write about it.
Yeah, well, that's basically what scientists do when they find something new. So if they find something new, especially when they find a new species, they get to describe it. So they want to first make sure that, no one has found this species before and that it actually is a different species. And so they take all the notes like Celia did, and then they try to make that knowledge available to other people. Another cool thing that scientists get to do when they find a new species is that they get to name the new species. So that's a really cool thing that scientists get to do as well.
Yeah. We did a program the other day with an ichthyologist as well, named Joe Cutler, who's discovered like 50 new species in his career, and he hasn't had any named after him yet, but one day maybe, which would be pretty cool. Miss Lee's class, also in Ottawa. Come on in, guys. You guys are, of course, our only big group in class today, so welcome in, kids. Did any of you guys have any thoughts?
We have three who would like to share their thinking. Yara, just come up quick and speak out loud. Stay right there. Speak up loud. Speak up loud.
What I would do is first I would draw it, and then I would show it to my parents. Then I would ask some scientists to help me gather all the information and stuff, and then put it online. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that was a great idea. So that's something that I do too. When I find something cool in the science that I do, I often tell other scientists. Sometimes I also tell my mom and dad. They like to hear about the fish or the mussels or crayfish that I work with. And then when we're done investigating it, we put it into a scientific paper and then we put it online, because things are a lot easier when you put them online. That means other people can find them all over the world. So I think you're ready to become a full scientist.
Fantastic. We have two other students that wanted to share in our Miss Lee's class.
Sorry, is that okay?
I wondered, because I was gonna say,
if you find something cool, I would usually leave it where it is to not disturb like where it is. Because sometimes if you find something like alive, like a plant or like an animal, I usually just leave it, like frogs and toads like that.
Yeah, that's such a really good point and a really good practice that we as scientists do. So usually when we find something new, or even when we find a fish that we know about, like we already know that species and we know that it lives in that environment, we take pictures. So when we're out on a river and we're sampling fish, we bring the fish up and put it into a tank, take pictures of it so that we can identify what species it is, and then we put it back where we found it. You made a really good point about like frogs and toads and not touching them. Those are particularly important because they can be really sensitive. Their skin is super sensitive to different things. And so you want to make sure not to touch those things so that you don't hurt them. So I think we have really cool tools often in cameras or our phones, so we can just take pictures of what we find and then investigate them more when we get home.
Yeah, great answer. Great question. All right, our last student in Miss Lee's class.
I will try to explore it and to find more about that thing and to let it on the safe place.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I think you kind of combine those two ideas, that you want to explore more about it. So maybe you'd go to the school library and read more about it, or you would go online and see if you can find more information about it. But it's important, just like Celia did, to return the fish or anything that you pick up back to where you found it, even if it's something that's not alive. So sometimes, you'll find like cool rocks or cool tree trunks or logs, and that what may seem to be not alive is actually really great environment for other creatures that may live inside the log or under the log. So that is why, when we go hiking or we're out in nature, we can observe how cool things are, but we need to leave them where we found them because it's somebody's house.
I love that message. I'm so glad we got a chance to cover that, Dr. Granados. One quick note, too. We mentioned talking to your parents first. I always like the story that the scientist who first discovered the age of the Earth, the man who did this, like the very first person to know what the age of the Earth was, the first thing he did was drive a couple hours and go tell his mother. She was about 80 years old, and it's just a really fun story, and I can share that with classes later. On YouTube, too, we've got Miss Alexander's student, Akshara. She would do research on what she discovered, which I think is a really cool thing. We have sketching it. We've got taking with a picture, sharing with friends. So very similar themes here on this. Can you speak a little bit about doing research and what that might be like when you first discover something, Dr. Granados?
Yeah, so I can tell you a little bit about the fish that I have found. When I was doing my research, when I was a graduate student, I was interested in knowing the types of fish that were in a specific river. So I was looking at the Detroit and St. Clair rivers. So those are, it's near Windsor, on the border of Windsor and Detroit. And we needed to know what type of fish were in the river. And so you may think, okay, how are we going to find out what fish are in there when we can't breathe underwater? We can't just go walking on top of the water to find out what fish are there. So we use a method called electrofishing. So electrofishing sends a small current of electricity in the water, which drives fish to come close to your boat. And then you take these really big nets with super long poles and dip the fish out of the water and then put it into the boat, which has a little tank inside, so the fish are nice and healthy and can continue to breathe. That allows us to then identify the fish without having to go for a swim. We measure the fish just like Celia did. We take note of where the mouth is, its body shape, so that we can make sure that we correctly identify the fish. We count how many of that fish we find, and then we put it back into the water. And depending on what types of fish we find and the number of fish, that can tell us something about the health of the river, because the fish are indicative or can show us the types of the quality of the water, the quality of the habitat. So the fish are kind of like a way for us that they can communicate to us the health of their environment. So once we take all of that information, the number of fish, and then how big they are, the different types of species of fish, we write it up into a scientific paper. So in the scientific paper, we explain what we did. We explain that we went out on the river, and then we tell people about the types of fish and the number of fish that we found. And that paper then goes into a journal publication like Celia's paper did. And what we try to do is make that paper available for anyone to read. So we try to publish it in open access journals so that anyone, including yourselves, could read what we did on the Detroit and St. Clair rivers.
Super, super cool. How neat is that? You mentioned electrofishing. We've heard about this a bunch in our last program. It's just super cool. I want to note, though, for the kids that might want to actually breathe underwater, I always like highlighting this. You can start on the path to becoming a scuba diver at 8 years old. So I think a lot of our kids fit in with that today. PADI is the certification agency for that. Bubble Maker is the name of the program. So if you want to go out and explore the rivers and oceans and lakes of the world, go check that out. It's a really neat way of exploring the waters of the planet. So what I think we might do for time is what I'm going to do is, Dr. Granados, if you want to highlight your second question, I'll go to our next group of teachers. And then our third one, I'll take our next group of teachers because we've got a lot of live classes with us today. And
perfect
time. So we got some great answers. And for our teachers that want to share their answers for the first question later, they can email me. I'll get those answers to you so you can look them over and give them the A-OK, which would be great. So yeah, go for it.
So just as a reminder, what was question number 2 in your junior scientist notebook was, where would you look for a fish? So we've talked a little bit about that already today in the question and answer, but where would we look for a fish?
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're going to start off by going to Miss Huxley's group, joining us in Caledon. Miss Huxley may have joined us for more broadcasts than any other teacher in our history, which is pretty exciting. No, don't shake your head.
Thanks, Miss Huxley. That's great.
I don't think so, Jess, but thank you.
We'll go back to the records. We'll find out. But nice to have you back. And so what do your kids think? Where would they go looking for a fish? Under a rock or where?
Okay, so many of them are going to look in streams or lakes nearby. Even though we live in the city here, we're near the city. We're on the edge of Brampton. We are bordered by Credit Valley Conservation Authority and also Toronto Region. And if you head further south, we have good old Lake Ontario. So streams, creeks, and lakes.
Amazing. Yeah, there's so many different places, so many different water bodies where we can find fish. And you'll be surprised that, fish can find their way to obviously really big lakes like Lake Ontario, one of the biggest lakes in the world, to really small lakes that are at the top of a mountain. Sometimes you'll even find them in ephemeral ponds. So ephemeral meaning that they only exist for a short amount of time. So usually in the spring with snow melt, you'll have these ephemeral ponds or these temporary ponds that get created with the snow melt, and you can find fish and different types of creatures in these ponds. So they really are all around you. And it sounds like people are going out and exploring their environments as well.
Which is super cool. So thank you, Miss Huxley. I'm going to go to Ms. Gautreau's class in just a minute as our second and last group to answer this specific question. But I want to note that Charlotte, joining us all the way in England, mentioned swampy water and ditches as well. She's on the ephemeral pond train. She knows what's going on. So way to go, Charlotte, for those great answers. Ms. Gautreau's class, grade 2, is joining us in Toronto. If you want to unmute your microphone, come on in and share away.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So my students are very curious to where these fish might be found. A lot of them are saying from ponds and rivers and oceans. We live in Toronto, so we have Taylor Creek near the school that a lot of the students go to. And so there are a lot of different places they can find fish here, but they're very curious of where to find a species of fish like they saw in the story.
Yeah, so the species of fish in the story is, just by the looks of it, is probably closer related to the Cyprinidae family, so kind of like the like goldfishes and carps. We do have carp in Lake Ontario, so those are pretty big fish that are closely related, I think, to this imaginary species that Celia found. But Toronto has a lot of different species of fish. I have actually had the chance to work with the Toronto Region and Region Conservation Authority, looking at the different species of fish that live in Toronto. And they're doing some neat work where they're trying to rebuild some habitat on near the Humber River and in the Toronto Islands to make it a better environment for fish to live. So they'll build sort of rock outcroppings so that fish can hide or fish can lay their eggs, and also change the velocity of the water, or how fast the water moves, because different fish, as we learned in the story, like different speeds of water, and depending on their body shape, will do better in faster or slower moving water. So just in your backyard, you'll find that there are a lot of different species of fish, like tens.
And I want to harp on this because we've got a lot of groups in the GTA today, the Toronto area. And so Toronto has one of the most incredible biodiversity series of books for people of all ages that you can access in public libraries online. Their Fish of Toronto series is amazing. So check that out. You can see all the fish, spiders, trees, fungi, whatever you're interested in. It's all near you. It applies to a lot of the regions around the Toronto area. And we talked about this the other day with a fisheries and ocean scientist. Toronto has salmon that run upstream in the rivers of Toronto. So if you've never gotten the chance to see this, you should make sure to go in the season when this happens. It's amazing, and there's some amazing pictures online. So do check that out. All right, Dr. Granados, what I'd love to do now is dive in with that third question, get our last few teachers, Ms. McIntosh, Ms. DeVries class, and go from there.
Okay, let's repeat what the third question was. In the junior scientist notebook, the third question was, what is one way that you can make something easier to find or understand?
Ooh, okay, I'll give our teachers one last second to think about that, and then we are going to head to Ms. McIntosh's class, joining us again in Toronto. What do you guys think? What did your students think today? Hello.
Oh my goodness, I have so many junior scientists with me. They're so excited about science, this group. They say they would examine it or compare it to something similar. They would even go, obviously, online to research it and see that there's nothing else comparable. They go to social media even, because social media is a source that we all use nowadays. Take notes, write about it, research. Oh, their answers are endless here.
I love that answer, and it's actually especially the social media aspect that wasn't probably in existence when Dr. Ceja was coming up and learning to be a scientist. But now that we have social media, this is actually a method that is employed or used by other scientists. So if a scientist is going out on a walk and they see something that they've never seen before, or maybe a tree species, or maybe they find a bird. There's a really huge community of birds on Twitter, like birders on Twitter, and they take a picture of it and then they post it on Twitter or Facebook and ask others, hey, does anybody know what this bird is or what this tree is? And they crowdsource the identification of that bird by using the scientific expertise or just general expertise of people around the world. And so I often see people posting questions about getting other scientists and experts to help them identify something, and it's often successful. So it's really the power of getting sort of that communal help to get that identification.
And I'm so glad we mentioned this. So thank you so much, Ms. McIntosh. Because something that we're going to harp on at the end of the broadcast as well, and in the months to come. One of the coolest social media platforms, one of the things that you guys can do with your class, is something called the Seek app. The Seek app is Pokemon Go for nature. You go with your phone, there's a squirrel in your front yard, you hover the camera over it, it tells you what it is, tells you every other picture that's been taken of it around the world. Then you take that picture, now you've earned the mammal badge, you take a picture of that blue jay right next door to it, you get the bird badge. It is super, super cool. We're going to be using it for a really big program that I will talk about a little bit at the end. So for our groups on YouTube, if you guys had any comments, we can take those as well. People mentioning that they use iNaturalist, which we'll get to in a minute, which is sort of more adult version, but we're going to encourage ways for our teachers to use it as well. Our 5-2 Eco Club doesn't have any questions right now, but if they do, they can let me know. So I think that these have been some really fantastic answers from all our groups today. Dr. Granados, is there any sort of big overarching message we want to use to tie it all back in together?
Yeah, I think it sounds like there are so many junior scientists out there, and I want to encourage you to keep looking out at the natural world. So keep looking under rocks, go out for hikes, respect nature while you're out there, take pictures, be kind to nature, and then share your discovery, because that is how we move science forward. Scientists share their discoveries, and you as junior scientists can share your discoveries to make it easier for others to learn about your discovery, but also to make it more accessible to find this new cool thing that you may have found.
Yeah, what a fantastic message. Thank you so much for that. I love this question coming in from Ms. Nilvo's class, so I'll bring them in to share this with you. So Ms. Nilvo's group, come on in, ask away.
Hi, Monica. I can share your passion because I'm a biochemist myself, so I share a lot with my students. So the question that they have for you is, I always share what got me started in science research, like what was that first thing that I ever encountered. So that's our question to you is, how did you get started in research? Like what or who inspired you that very first time to research something?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I always thought I would become like a medical doctor. And when I was in my undergrads, when I was in university, I got to do a internship at Algonquin Park near Lake Opeongo. And when I got there, I got to do research or work on a boat. So every day I would wake up in my cabin, go and get breakfast at the communal cabin, and then hop into a boat and go and take water samples to help the research that was being conducted in at the University of Toronto, but also as part of the Harkness Research Laboratory that is there on Lake Opeongo. And I thought to myself, this is so cool. Not only does my office get to be the lake, I get to ask really cool questions and then formulate experiments to try to answer the questions that I think up, and that gets to be my job. I get to be inquisitive as my job. And that is what was sort of a turning point for me. And after that, I pursued every research opportunity that I could get my hands on. And now my job is to make it easier for others to do research and to learn about other scientists' research as well.
What a great answer. I love it. I want to head to Ms. Boyer's class, sort of to wrap up question, then we'll dive into a little bit of introduction of something that some of our teachers may not know about. But Ms. Boyer's class had a great question from Ottawa, so come on in, guys.
Thank you. I have two questions. Well, it's two parts. The first part comes from Charlie. He wanted to know, what is your best advice for kids who want to be scientists when they grow up? And the second part of that to follow up is from Ivan. He wanted to know how long it would take to get through school. Oh, you can't.
Yeah, you're muted.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I heard you.
Yeah. She's muted to her kids. This happens all the time. This is like half our fun in video broadcast now. They're like, what? I can't.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Jessie.
So the second part was from Ivan. He just wanted to know how long it took you to get through school, and were there special subjects that you had to take to focus on?
Yeah, okay. So what is my advice for junior scientists? I think Jessie has been giving you some great programs. So I had been interested in science since I was a kid. So I grew up in New Jersey and Arizona, and every time, my parents would take me out on hikes, and we had this neat wood lot that was in front of my house, and I spent a lot of time in the wood lot looking under rocks and looking at trees and looking at wildlife. So I think it's keep that curiosity alive, so that you start to to further that love of science and curiosity and inquisitiveness. And then to formalize your education, you do go to university and then something called graduate school afterwards. That being said, like you can be, you folks are all junior scientists right now, so like you don't need to have a formal education to be a scientist. I think Jess is going to tell you about a lot of cool ways that you can contribute to science. But if you want a formal education as a scientist, I then went to, so I did a 4-year undergraduate degree at the University of Toronto. And then I did a master's degree that was 2 years. And then I did a PhD that was 5 years. So it was a lot of schooling, but I learned a lot when through my graduate education. So not only how to do science, but I learned a lot of other neat skills that help me do my job now. But you don't have to go through that entire process to be a scientist. You can be a scientist right now.
Yeah. And I love the two elements to this story. One is for students that want to end up as a professional scientist, like Dr. Granados. It seems daunting. You're in grade 5 and you're thinking about grade 12 and then 4 years. 2 years and then 5 years, and it's just you're screaming internally. I know I was when I was about your age, but really once you do that, you end up being very young and now in a position to do really incredible work, things that you love for the rest of your life, which is a pretty great situation to be in. And as Dr. Granados said, even if you don't want to be a professional scientist, having that scientist mindset, what we explored today, and how you can get out, explore the natural world, make those sort of hypotheses, find answers, seek out solutions, is a really exciting way of looking at the world. And if you approach planet Earth in that way, you're liable to be more curious, to be more engaged, to learn more about pretty much anything that you want to, and to understand sort of the truth from fiction in a lot of news stories and beyond. So I'm really glad we got a chance to talk about all this today. We are near the end of the broadcast, so I know some of our teachers have some other questions, and I'd love them to share them with me via email. What I want to harp on is a few of our teachers may know we've got this program coming up, Dr. Granados, called Backyard Bio in May. So we are going all month long, encouraging kids around this planet to go out, explore the natural world near them, make hypotheses about the things that they find, take those pictures and share them. So this could not be more fitting of a presentation if it tried. And so if people want to check that out, backyardbio.net, we're providing the opportunity for kids around the globe to connect with one another, share those stories of exploration and observation. So our groups in New Mexico could chat with our groups in Ontario and Florida and beyond, and just have a really amazing time celebrating and showcasing biodiversity. So you can check out all the information about that. We are using the Seek app and iNaturalist. We're using social media. We're having direct connections between groups. So it's going to be a really, really exciting festival. And I'm going to talk with you, Monica, a little bit later if we can get you back for this program again, because this was so much fun and so unique for us here at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to my colleagues, Mathieu and Dominique, too, for helping me put together this presentation. And thank you for listening about science, but specifically open science, which is, hopefully making it easier for junior scientists like you to learn about the cool research that we're doing at Environment and Climate Change Canada, but also just throughout all the places that science gets conducted.
You are the first person to ever highlight open science as an important topic in one of our programs, which is super, super exciting, so that, kids today in these classes will have the opportunity to hear more from direct scientists from the field around this planet, which is really, really cool. You mentioned Environment and Climate Change Canada too, so we've done a long-standing series with them over the last few years. If you want to check out Dr. Granados' presentation, again, any other one of our talks with Environment and Climate Change Canada, just type that in on our YouTube channel. They will all pop up together, and we really hope some of our classes take the chance to do that today. Monica, this has been so much fun. What we do at the end of every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all our live teachers. I know it's a lot of teachers at home at their desks. We've got one full class, but let's do it. Miss Nilvo, Miss Boyer, Miss Huxley, Miss Guitarro, Miss Welcome and thank you.